there are some top questions that I didn't cover in this Eating for Health lecture series that I'm frequently asked. So I've chosen the top two of the questions that I've gotten over the last decade in each category of nutrition. And I wrote them down for each food group, what, when, and water. And I'm just going to talk through them quickly because these are maybe not the questions that you have after listening to this lecture series, as well as the basic introductory lecture series before this, but the ones that most of you are likely to have. So with regard to dietary fats, the two top questions that I tend to get are what's wrong with a low-fat diet, and does it matter what exact source, like the source of the fish oil, or whether it's flax or chia seeds. So the answer to the first question is that a low-fat diet is not likely to meet your essential fat needs unless you're specifically supplementing for them. But even under those circumstances, if you're just supplementing and you're low in total fat intake, then the question becomes, what else are you eating? And is it possible to have satiety when you're not eating much fats? Studies with the Mediterranean diet show that traditional Mediterranean style eating has almost half its calories as fats, 45%, or as much as 45%, and includes a lot of nuts and seeds, olives, olive oil. And what's interesting is that a series of studies that was trying to assess overall health value of different diets throughout Europe, the United States, and one of the groups that was studying this decided to test to see how important the olive oil component or the monounsaturated fat component is of the diet. And when that was eliminated, comparing diets from Spain and Greece to other parts of Europe, the health impact of the traditional Mediterranean style diet was largely eliminated. Which is fascinating that monounsaturated fats would have such a large impact, or maybe it's the amount of dietary fats in general, that they would have such a positive impact on health, even though the body can make monounsaturated fats. So the scientific literature shows very clearly that low-fat diets is more likely to result in reduced health than a higher fat diet, as long as that higher fat diet isn't coming from animal fat sources, or maybe it's not even the animal fat source, but how we cook and overcook animal fat sources. So how strong the correlation there is between animal fats and reduced health isn't even definitive at this point. What we do know is that if you're low in fat, that you're more likely to be eating lean protein sources, but also a lot of carbohydrate. Now, if that carbohydrate is mainly vegetables, that's fine, but in westernized countries, it's typically processed carbohydrates in addition to whatever vegetables you might be eating. In terms of the exact source of a fat, whether it's flax or chia seeds for your omega-6, sardines versus salmon or herring, or if it matters whether you're eating peanuts or almonds, really it does not. And maybe I'm biased because I'm trained as a biochemist, but your cells are happy when the bloodstream, is my view, when the bloodstream is providing your cells the things that it needs. The omega-3s and 6s, the glucose, the amino acids, your cells don't have any idea what foods that came from. They have no clue whether you ate chia seeds or flax seeds. All they know is whether there's omega-3 fats or not, whether your blood sugar is stable or not, whether they have all 20 amino acids available to them or not, whether there's a lot of antioxidants in your bloodstream or not, or free radicals from pollution and from a lot of exercise relative to how much antioxidants you're consuming. That's what your cells know. And you are a collection of cells. So if your cells are functioning better, then your organs are functioning better, then you are functioning better. So it shouldn't make any difference to you what the source is, as long as your bloodstream is strong in all of the macro and micronutrients that you need. So the exact source is not important for the types of fats or for protein. Where a variety of sources becomes important is with fruits and vegetables, because each fruit and vegetable has a different spectrum and type of phytonutrients, and each type of phytonutrient has a different ability to quench free radicals, the different types of free radicals in your body. So when you look at the scientific literature on how healthy is it to have large amounts of vitamin C as opposed to eating citrus, it turns out that the impact of the original food is much healthier than extracting elements out of the food and trying to get large doses of that. And the implication is that it is the spectrum of the complex spectrum of nutrients that comes from foods, which are complex because they're living organisms, that is the best for our body, not our thought out best intentions of what specific nutrients could be teased out that might provide us the greatest benefit. So there is, to date, no statistically significant reduction in disease risk shown from supplementation, but there is a lot of disease risk reduction shown from natural foods, the implication there being that we don't fully understand how the complex spectrum of nutrients is helping us, and probably it is because the different nutrients do different things in the body. So you don't want to just eat apples all day, or you may think, okay, broccoli and blueberries is the highest in phytonutrients, I'm just going to eat broccoli and blueberries. But there's some interesting studies showing that it's better to eat less broccoli and blueberries, but to also include some other fruits and vegetables that have the different nutrients, so that you have a wider variety, so that you quench a wider variety of free radicals in the body. Okay, so this is a good lead-in into the fruits and vegetables questions. So the phytonutrients in fruits and vegetables, you're better off with different colors, different fruits and vegetables, as opposed to very large amounts of one. And those phytonutrients, although they're destroyed with cooking, that's another big question that I get. What about, does it matter if I have a variety of fruits and vegetables or not? Yes, it does. And does it matter if I'm cooking the vegetables? Yes, it does. So organic, because the plant doesn't have the pesticides that we're providing to protect the plant, after just a few generations, an organic plant has more phytonutrients to protect itself from the environment than a plant that isn't organic. But if you have an organic plant from very poor soil, then it might not be higher in nutrients than a plant that has used phytonutrients and fertilizers. So herbicides and insecticides, it might not be higher. So it's not for sure. It's local sustainable farms, they tend to care more about the soil, and so those plants might be higher in nutrients than a mass-produced organic plant. It's not obvious when you're in a large grocery store, are the organic healthier or not. But if you go to a farmer's market and these plants, these foods are from smaller farms where they care more, which isn't to say that large farms don't care, but you're more likely to have sustainable growing on smaller plots because there's less to focus on. That's assuming that the farmer does care, right? So it becomes a personal issue. Do you know the farmer? Do you know their farming practices? But in general, organic is higher in phytonutrients. And cooking destroys some of those phytonutrients, but it also breaks down cell walls so that more of the nutrients get out. So it isn't until you've broken down all the cell walls, somewhere between 10 and 60 minutes of cooking, where the availability actually drops. So at first, phytonutrient availability goes up with cooking because more cell walls are breaking down. But once it's all out of the cells with the cooking, then you just have the continued destruction of the phytonutrients that was happening since the very beginning of the cooking. So there's like a turnaround between 10 and 60 minutes, depending on how rapidly oxidized the food phytonutrients are. So in terms of starches, I'm often asked about cravings. This implies that our brain has a need for carbohydrate. Cravings tend to be the worst when a person is really active and doesn't supply the carbohydrates to even replace half of their activity needs. So it's typically with athletes or people who are really busy, and then as they get older, like 40 years old, 50 years old, as the metabolic rate drifts down, and they're still very active people, but they want to lose a little bit of body fat, so they start dropping calories, particularly carbohydrates, and with their high levels of activity, that carbohydrate restriction ends up dropping their blood sugar so that by the end of the day, each day, their cravings are very strong. So it's a mistake to over carb restrict if you have an active lifestyle or exercise a lot. Another question I get is about, since I'm always recommending at least some starches for exercise, well, don't they make us fat? Yes, they do. If starches enter your bloodstream faster than lean tissue can absorb them, then they spill over into body fat, and their initial rush into your lean tissues shuts down lean tissue from absorbing those carbohydrates, and skeletal muscle tissue shutting down for long enough periods of time, months and years, can cross over into type 2 diabetes. And before that, the pre-diabetic state is insulin resistance. So if you're insulin resistant, then less of the carbohydrates you're eating go into muscle tissue, so there's a greater partitioning of carbohydrate into body fat. So if you're insulin resistant, you're more likely to be overweight or obese even if you're not overeating. So carbohydrates can put your body in a situation where you are biased towards increasing body fat even when you're not overeating. You might be restricting calories by 200 to 300 calories worth a day and still not lose any weight because there's so little absorption of carbohydrate calories into your muscle tissue. Animal fats also induce insulin resistance, so it's not just a carbohydrate issue. In terms of protein, I'm often asked how much, but I think that question is misleading because studies show that if you space your protein out through the day, you can as much as double your muscle growth, which doubles your fat loss ability to lose body fat by spacing the protein out so that it's always available to your cells. So if you're using protein powder or protein bars that are made from powders, they're cleared out of your body within 3 hours. You only get 3 hours of muscle growth. It doesn't matter how much protein you eat. You're only going to get 3 hours of muscle growth before your body starts to use your muscle tissue as a protein source for the rest of your body. Yogurt might take 4 hours. Cottage cheese and an omelet that you cook might take 5, at the most 6 hours. Something that's even coarser to digest, like steak or chicken, will definitely take 6 hours. So you'll get 6, not a whole lot more hours of lean tissue growth, depending on how slow the protein source digests. It is not just about how much protein you're eating. Give that a shot before you double your protein when you start exercising harder. Try just being consistent with protein through your day. Should you include protein in a snack in between, like yogurt, for example? Only if you're low in protein in the previous meal. Otherwise, if it's a solid food protein source and you've got on the order of 15 to 20 grams worth, 60 to 80 calories worth, you're fine until your next meal. If you need more protein than that, then you also need more dietary fats, more carbohydrates, more water. Everything starts ramping up to recover from harder training. Are nuts or almonds or almond milk a protein source? Basically not. Is quinoa a protein source? Basically not. They're about, all those foods I just mentioned, they're about 10% of their calories as protein. The rest for nuts and almonds, including almond milk, unless they added sugar as a sweetener, is unsaturated, healthy fats, and the rest of the calories in quinoa and amaranth are carbohydrate. In terms of when we're eating, so that's the what piece, I am often asked, how bad is it if I delay breakfast? Every hour you're going to lose 10 to 20 calories worth of muscle tissue, which could drop your metabolic rate that day by 3 or 4 times that amount. So if you wake up and then you go exercise and it drops your blood sugar for sure, even more than what happens from not eating for 12 hours, so the exercise drops you even more, you might be losing 20, 25 calories worth of muscle tissue per hour. If you wait until lunchtime, you might lose 75, 80 or more calories of muscle tissue that will drop your metabolic rate for that day by a few hundred calories. That will not only reduce your energy, your ability to move, BLIV, your blood sugar will be lower, so your mental capacity will be lower, but your propensity for body fat will be higher because you're losing hours not only to muscle breaking down, but those are hours where muscle would have potentially been building up. So each hour is like this ticking time bomb of the destruction of your muscle tissue. So sure, wait an hour or two. You're an adult, you can do whatever you want. But every hour, if you want to be really analytical about it, every minute is a loss in lean tissue that you don't supply nutrients from your intestines, both carbohydrate so that the brain stops eating your muscle as a fuel source, and some protein so that your entire body will stop eating your muscle as a protein source. The other biggest question I get is, what about a late dinner? If you have to eat dinner late, because that's just how your schedule is, have a healthy snack around dinner time and reduce the size of dinner. And drink water throughout your evening so that you can process that dinner better before you go to bed, so you don't have a lot of undigested calories as you're going to sleep. In terms of water, I'm often asked, well, I don't like water, and therefore I don't ever remember to drink it. Even when I put a bottle of water on my desk, I don't remember. Link water consumption with other fluid consumption. If you're going to drink tea, you have to have an equal volume of water first before you drink the tea that also has water in it. If you're going to drink coffee, you have to drink an equal volume of water first. If you're going to drink a soda, whether there's sugar in there or not, whatever it is that you're going to drink, you have to drink an equal volume of water first. If you don't drink other stuff either, then it's best to link water intake to your eating. You eat a meal, you have a glass of water with it. You have a snack, you have a glass of water with it. And the other big question that I get is, well, isn't there water already in food? Yes, there's on average about a half liter of water per 1,000 calories. But the Institute of Medicine's recommendation of water is 1 to 1.5 liters of water per 1,000 calories. So in the end, since there's already water in food, you'd need an additional 0.5 to 1 liter. So 0.5 liters per water minimum if you're eating foods that have a lot of water in them already, and 1 liter per 1,000 calories if there isn't a lot of water in those foods. So 3/4 liter is per 1,000 calories is a pretty good target. And if you're an active person, even if you don't exercise, then 1 liter of water per every 1,000 calories is a better target.